that one, because we're an inclusive platform, and second, because of the diversity of the businesses. We've got people working here who are artists. You know, Ashwini Kumar sitting over there, Rashmi Agarwal. He's a graphic designer from the National College of Arts. You know, we have 50% of our staff members are not having college degrees. That's okay, because they don't require that. You know, we have also people from activist NGO background of the most intense kinds, you know, think tanks and whatnot. So these are very different kinds of people, and of course technologists and people working in the analytics and the design, which, where to be honest, we have a little bit of a gap. So if you find this interesting, you know, that's where we're trying to expand the media business. Our different partners, you know, the different clients. And in a nutshell, what I realized was, as an entrepreneur, in the first year or two, you're constantly meeting people. You also mentioned this. Whenever you meet somebody, as a nice person, you want to meet them as an individual, as a human. But then you start thinking, is Ashim a potential partner? Is he a potential employee? Is he a potential client? What does the client mean? You know, is he someone who could generate me revenue? If it's an NGO like Oxfam or UPenn or the British High Commission, they do an event like this, they pay for it. If you know, an individual or even a Pratham or a Teach for India, an NGO which has less money does it, it's still going to be worth our while to engage with them. So every time you meet someone, you have to think about that. Many times, on that same note, many people will approach you. They approach me for favors, you know, for jobs or for even just psychologically disturbed people. If you're a social network or socially conscious, help me. And they're not people who can easily be helped. So you always need to be able to kind of analyze people, judge people, figure them out. It's basically all about the people. And of course, you must be wondering, what exactly is this business? So this slide will appeal to you. So our arts business is essentially what you see on the ground floor. In a nutshell, we have a rental model. We work with different retailers, different exhibitors. You know, we collect admission fees, commissions, so on and so forth. And through that, we hope to eventually create our own product line as well. Arvind has an entire antique collection and so on. So we generate, I basically see art in a nutshell as a profitability cash flow driver. Art for impact. Let rich people buy art from us, philanthropists. 10 lakh would be painting or statue, and that funds hopefully the other two businesses in the short term. Programs, which is going on here, I see it as a business-wise as a revenue driver, right? But it's something which is very regular, it's very easy, it's a cross-subsidy model. Media, this polling analytics platform that we're setting up, website, that's obviously going to be the long-term value driver. The entire thing is self-funded by us in our own cash flows, and that makes me feel good. You know, that if we can get these two businesses, the operational thing going in a way that runs itself at a basic level, then you scale to the next level and bring in growth capital for that. It's one of, as a VC, the thing that would annoy me the most about a company is at a seed stage. What's the worst thing an entrepreneur can use money for at a seed stage? Advertising. Marketing. And, I'm sorry, maybe not everyone would agree with me, salaries. Paying himself, at least. You need to pay the other people. That's exactly what they wanted for it. Grant. I want a $250,000 grant from Gates Foundation. So for the next 2 years, I can do some research, you know, and make a nice business plan. I'm smart, and I'll get like Asha and two other guys to work with me, and then we'll go and get another $250,000 to do a pilot. So it's the basic stuff. You know, at the seed stage level, you need someone who's really believes in the idea, the passion. Like for the rest of my life, I'm going to do this. You know, and this is where again, I disagree with some entrepreneurs who say that startup failures. It's absolutely critical to talk about failure and be honest and not lie. But it's wrong to celebrate failure. And we have this kind of little bit of a culture going on where people are like talking about routine entrepreneurship and so on. That's okay for 30, 40, 50, you've done all this stuff and you've come to Ricky, incubating companies, you know, like friends over here. But it's not okay for like 20, 25, 30-year-old young person who's just come out, who's figuring out his career, and he's like, I want to work in a startup. Don't do that. Don't do that. Unless you want to work at a really, really good startup, apply to graduate school. So again, this is, I'm not going to go through this slide, it's the value proposition of what's at Bharat. Let's go ahead. And this is kind of some of the stuff that I was talking about. Something on this, you can go ahead. Building for scale and impact. So this is what I was talking about, right? We have 3 different businesses. We're still, you know, we didn't spend 2 years getting this like funded by like a Nandavila company or someone. We just started doing it ourselves. And these are the 4 things that what really have, what the hell have we done in the last 2 years? We're still in the process of launching our product and services and getting ready. This is what we've done. You know? this is obviously the stuff that most people do. But parallelly to doing that, we started to put it on platforms. Look at our website. It's still like only 30% of what it should be, but it's quite robust. It's got a lot of functionality. JVC, again, I'll say the same thing. Not the final shape. It's a cafe come in, we still have to take over the roof. So many things, you know, we could be doing better here. You guys are our guests here today. But it's in progress, and we've done some 100 events, and each one gets better. So again, bias for action. We've got to start doing it. You know, organizational development, team, hiring the right people, and really working with them. You know, HR is not just about recruiting or retention. It's about motivation and the other aspects. And then of course partnerships and applications that everything can be done internally. Often deciding that is a very interesting game from a personal as well as a business perspective. And this is what we've been doing. And this is just some more details of how complex it can get. It's not just for us, but for anyone. Think about your stakeholders. So I think about core stakeholders, like most important people as a core team, which is already 15 people. But then we have these advisors, and there's many more now, different whatever people. It's family and friends. They could also be advisors, you could have given them some money. Then there's your investors. Then you have your consultants, key people, which are not internal. In our case, our CTO, 15 people who develop a website, legal and accounts, and other consultants. And then who are really your customers? So we basically connect artists and a kind of social activist type of people. So it's really artists. It's our whole art department. It's not just an art business. They're out there cataloging and whatever, signing up all of these artists from all the colleges of India. And artists are musicians, designers, performing artists, all of them. Similar to NGOs. I mean, there's so many NGOs in India. So who are the best ones? And once we have that, and these are our college ambassadors, the young motivated people who really want to join up. So we have people who look after each of this. And sorry, there's too much content here. So this is our web platform. I won't go through this. We already talked about this. I also want to describe a Q idea. You guys can check out our website. This is our physical platform, the location-based services. This is our arts, health arts. This is programs. And I just wanted to get up this one, and it's ending now, so I just wanted to just go to the next slide. What exactly are these issues? This is all, you know, structural stuff. What exactly do we talk about? So what we've done is we said we take a meta issue. So we take something like governance, right? Because it's important under which you have corruption, you have local governance, you have so many things. And people are really pissed off about the country. So many people talk about waste management, water, millions of things, land, energy. So every time an NGO comes in here, right, under one of those areas, that's this event. Another one of these areas is entrepreneurship. That's 15 events on entrepreneurship. So all of you guys are really amazing stuff. So each specific film. So if you go to the website and you go to the gender, it's not here. So you go to the gender page. That's the one on which you've done the most amount of work. So many issues: rape, molestation, women in the workplace, security of women, I don't know, female feticides, a dozen issues. So each time someone comes in, LGBT issues, openness to sexuality, it all gets categorized under those programs, and that content is being captured. And of course, we work with those NGOs to make sure those polls are credible, and the art business can support that. So these are some of the issues, and the idea is that only through aggregating and tagging and linking things up, and having that patience, it's not going to happen overnight. So you need to have that vision, that format, and have the patience to collect some of the stuff. And I think, just to give you one example of it, under foreign policy, which is one of our issues, right? What do we mean? Like, how does this actually come into practice? So here the client is Rupen Kasi, Center for Advanced Study of India, which is a very amazing think tank, which does a lot of work with foreign policy. So Devesh Kapoor the head of Kasi, has created an amazing poll on what do Indian people think about like the relations with other countries, right? And he's done this poll with the IFS and the CII, the business people, and the guys who run the foreign policy. Now he wants to do it with you. So making him do it. If you guys are good at polling, you've got 700 college ambassadors, whatever, do this poll with them. And by doing that offline poll, of course, we get a ton of foreign policy content, which are not going to do what's in Bharat foreign policy polls, scenarios and stuff like that. What happens if tomorrow, if this happens in Pakistan, what should we do? And all of that data is open to you. So as soon as you answer that, you can see what people are saying and analyze that by region and so on. And then on programs, so we have something called the PI Forum, India, Iran, Israel. We know a bunch of whatever here, Iranians and Israelis. And we have a couple of the foreign policy like workshops. You know, each time one of these, other people kind of do them. You know, this is the program today. So hopefully you can see a little bit, even though I'm kind of just like clarity to all of this, how this works. Now I want to get to this thing. So I already talked about the white tagger. If you just go to the next thing, the first learning that I really had from everything was that this obsessive focus on the base of the pyramid doesn't allow us sometimes to realize that a lot of the impact can be created over here. And indeed, if you just go ahead, now like economists are talking about this. We talked about BOP. They're talking about Fortune above the BOP. And we see the stats that something like 50% of the population of the country is fitting into that. And this is actually more accessible. These are the kind of folks who are, for example, in the slums where in Gurgaon and all a lot of that's happening. Typically, there wouldn't be BOP. We heard bluntly in the shows, for example, many deals that we looked at, people would be arguing that, hey man, I do a deal like the average income of the borrower around the village is 10,000 rupees, mine is 8,000, I'm more social. Or for that matter, even looking at other sectors. You tell me, who's more social? The guy building a school for 100 people or the guy building a hospital for 100 people? It's really tricky. So I learned that that's why the social business should probably, if you go to the social business side, should be, like all of you guys, a lot of them working in social enterprise. It's not just the base of the pyramid. That's one aspect of it. Who is our audience? Right? Clearly. But I'm not saying I agree with this, but let's just look at this definition today. You have someone like, I don't know, Tata is more social than Vedanta. Their cross-subsidy is more, right? They have a 30% shareholding in their companies. Most of that goes into trust. Mukesh Ambani is having a, I don't know, 90%, 70% shareholding in Reliance. So it's not false to say that they are more social, but it's still kind of cross-subsidy. So that is a valid way of looking at social business. Like run business, make money, extra money, a certain portion of it goes to the community, make it a high percentage. These guys say, I'm social. I've created free surveys with 1 billion people in countries have become free because of it. Or Airtel or other telecom companies. It's a valid argument, isn't it? That for a couple of days, say you can make a phone call, which is like much more. 900 million people whatever have access to cell phones. So what is really social business? That was one learning. The other was that we're not really one country, we're like a continent. So you're working in venture capital, you're looking all over India. Just look at the stats. I don't know how many of you are actually starkly aware of this. This is actually really interesting stats. It's a very detailed research that was done by IAS, and they basically sort of let you go through it. Basically, what it's saying is that something like 60 to 90% of the additions to the workforce are going to come from these so-called Imaru states in the future. So the demographic dividend in India has been happening in the past in places like Tamil Nadu, whatever high growth Kerala, high growth states. So that explains the Indian story. It's true. But guess what's happening in the future now? It's happening in the scary states, with poverty and so on. So that's why, and of course, people talk about social impact. What does art have to do with social impact? This is something people got. Clearly, you see that it's a huge market, which is great, undefined. And who are these artisans? The second largest employers after agriculture, and they're all kind of very, very poor, socially backward families, and concentrated geographically in 6 or 7 areas. So again, I think this meaning of social impact really needs to be re-looked at. And this is of course getting a little more mystical and saying it's really about making sure that the kind of depressed, people are able to wake up and connecting the aspiring middle class. So that's basically it in a nutshell, guys, in terms of my story. And I just want to kind of say a couple of things, in terms of challenge of being an entrepreneur. They keep saying that only 1 out of 100 companies survive. It's true, right? Isn't it? So one has to kind of psychologically accept that. In the first year, if you make it through the first year, then you're probably 20. So I feel good, for the team. You made it through the first year. But it still means now it's 1 out of 20 to get into the second year. And if you're a social enterprise, it's even harder. Because if this is a company, you have a format, you have a rule of returns. Then you have returns versus impact. How do you define impact? If you're a social enterprise, what's the part that's even harder? Because impact is hard to define. And it's fuzzy and you have multiple products. So ultimately, I want to propose a definition of social business, which is simply that it's ethical business, which is not as an oxymoron. So what is ethical business? A microfinance example. What did they go wrong? It's a great idea. But then once it crossed that return and they started making a ton of money, they didn't stick to their original promise. Let me have a commercial model because it'll do better than the government and the NGO sector. Once, and let me have a 25% interest rate because I need to do it to return my cost and here's a proof of it. once I achieve that scale, well, obviously I'm going to return the prices down and benefits will go to the poor. But once it happens, the capital is hurt, logic dictates $100 million for the capital, all the capital flowing in, you get greedy. We make it greedy, we are making it greedy, right? And it's not just money. It can be political inducements or other things, like someone's like, you can be ambassador to France, or there's all kinds of stuff. So how do you address that? So it's really about governance. It is kind of about the Tata versus like Reliance thing. If a company has good governance and it's ethical and it's running in a proper way, that's very much the first definition. And the values-based thing, how do you measure that? You have to go into their chart. Just see how they treat their people. Treat them, their employees. Do they treat them like machines? And especially the Indian kind of culture, where we have this attitude in our culture of, as Winston Churchill said very racistly, the Hindu and the Han, who's referring to the Nazis, actually throw her at your feet. It's a very ruthless way of saying it, but that's what he meant. That we're either always excluding people, someone bigger than us, or slapping them around and yelling at them, right? And in a company is the worst form of that. The promoter-driven culture, and it's there, from a small little tiny shop to the biggest enterprise. I've been an investment banker and walked in and seen how they work. That's social business. You cannot be a social business. That's why people are so hateful in you. Because like you say all this nice stuff, you're doing all the nice things for the world, but I see you as a person, and you're an asshole. You behave badly with your employees, you beat your wife, you're a little angry person, whatever. A lot of NGOs have that. They have that like resentment or whatever. Similarly in business, if we can have truly a full business, which is reflected in HR, values-based